Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, so welcome back. So this is now we are in week 2. So this will be the first lecture video for the week 2, and today we will start looking at plastic waste sources. So if you remember from the last week, that week 1 that we covered the 5 videos, I was discussing mostly what is plastic. Now we will start getting into what is plastic waste, and then what are the sources associated, where the sources, production, global and Indian statistics in terms of how much plastic waste is being produced, and out of that how much is coming from Indian scenario, how much is the global scenario. So you will see lots of data in the form of tables, mostly in the form of figures. You will see most of the data in the terms of figures. So in this week we will be looking at in terms of in this particular week we will be talking about sources, we'll talking about production, we'll talking about the global and Indian statistics associated with that. So this is what we'll cover in the entire 5 videos that will be part of week 2, and so we'll start with looking at sources right now and some definitions associated with plastic waste, like what is plastic waste. So to start with, if you think about when we say waste, we are looking at plastic waste is a component of solid waste stream. So the plastic waste is actually part of solid waste. So solid waste, some of you may have taken a course from somewhere. We also had an NPTEL course which was I think offered twice already, and maybe next time again it will be offered. So solid waste, there is a definition, very simple example in terms of very simple definition for a layman in terms of solid waste is anything which has no value for the person who is discarding that particular waste material. But there is a legal definition, there is a regulatory definition. So if we go by the legal or the regulatory definition, it is defined as it's a non-liquid, non-soluble material ranging from municipal garbage to industrial waste that contain complex and sometimes hazardous substances. So that's kind of the legal definition or more formal definition for solid waste. So but what is in there? Typically you will find paper, you find plastic. So we are focusing on plastic. This is what this course is all about. So but this course is this plastic waste is actually part of this big solid waste stream. So it is nothing new as such. When we talk about solid waste, we did talk about plastic waste a little bit, but then why we are talking about plastic waste is a separate course, because plastic waste as of today is one of the major concern in terms of waste management globally, and especially those filled plastic, thin plastic that I was referring to in the week 1 as well is creating a lot of environmental problems, and we'll be talking about those issues in this week and the week after as well, because that's kind of the focus, looking at the plastic waste. But other than plastic, which you will have some paper, you have food waste, animal, vegetables, you can have e-waste. We also actually this particular semester we have a parallel course running on e-waste, which was run, this is actually rerun. Then metal waste, glass waste, ceramic waste, medical waste. So there is a lot of different types of waste out there. Plastic waste is one component in which this course is focusing on. Many times you will have plastic waste in combination of the other waste stream. So say you go to the vegetable market, you go to a restaurant, you buy certain food. Until very recently, many places you will get that in a polythene bag. Now in many of the Indian states, not all, but many Indian states have gradually banning those plastic. So you may be getting back in paper bag or some sort of other containers. But those plastic bags are used as a storage. With you go and buy some stuff, they will give you that in plastic bag, and that plastic, when you say you you ate those food for a little bit, then you probably didn't like it, or you are too full, you don't want to finish that food, and then you just wrap around that plastic and throw it in the dustbin. Now there we have this biological waste and plastic waste together. So we have to separate it. Biological waste has to be treated in a different way, plastic waste has to be treated in a different way. So many times you will see plastic actually in combination of many of the other waste streams. So that's what I'm trying to emphasize. So you will have plastic, but there will be other waste streams also attached with it. And to proper recycling plastic, or even to proper recycling those other waste stream, we have to separate them. We have to separate them individually, and that is what is known as source segregation. Or basically that's known as segregation of the waste, and if you do it at the source, it is called source segregation, which we talked about which we usually talk in great detail in a waste management course. And since this is also plastic waste management, so we have to keep this plastic free from other waste stream for effective reuse of that plastic or effective recycling of that plastic. If we have lot of other components present, that is known as contamination. Contamination, although contamination of what? Contamination of other material other than plastic, because here our focus is on treating the plastic, getting the plastic, making fuel out of that, use it in road construction, making new plastic products out of that. If we have other material mixed with that, it becomes very difficult to handle. So that's why we call them a contamination of other material, which should not be present in that to make an effective use of plastic. So in general, if you think about the waste that is produced, it kind of ranges from 0.25 to 2.5. It is 0.25 to 2.5 kg per person per day. So per person, many times we use the term per capita per day. So 0.25, this is 0.25 to 2.5. So this is the range. So usually you will see 0.25 happening mostly in the rural area. In the rural area, you will have 0.25, very less waste that is produced. 2.5 is highly urbanized area, and in highly urbanized as well as, I would say, very rich neighborhood. So it will be highly urbanized as well as very rich neighborhood. Why very rich neighborhood? Those of you who has taken solid waste course should be able to answer that. So but just to, if you should have the answer, because we talked about that in that course as well, or any solid waste course, whether my course or any other course that you have taken. So rural areas, still we don't have that much packaging material, still we don't have that much Amazon, Flipkart and other things coming there. So waste production is much less. As less of packaging material as well, not much mall culture, not much packaging. When you go to say Spencer or this Big Bazaar and all those, you get a lot of packaging material. But as you go in an urban area, a lot of packaging, that's why you see more and more waste being produced. And that's why the number keeps on going up to around maximum of 2.5 that we talked about, 2.5 kg per person per day. And 2.5 is, it's pretty high that you typically see in a Western world scenario. Very rich neighborhood, not in all Western world as well, very rich neighborhood. They're wasting too much paper, they're wasting all the paper, plastics, a lot of packaging material, not much cooking basically at home. They're buying a lot of semi-cooked food in those containers and other stuff. So that's where you will find 2.5 kg per person per day. That's a lot of waste that is being produced. In India, the value that we have as per the what we know as a CPHO manual is 0.6 kg per person. So per person we call it capita per day. So that's the value we use in most of the design calculation in the Indian scenario, 0.6 kg per person per day. But that's the total waste. Out of that, plastic is typically nowadays showing up sometime in between 10 to 20%. In some places, plastic is as high as 20%. We are working in Guwahati right now on some solid waste management work over there with Guwahati Municipal Corporation. So we did very elaborate sampling of a waste composition. Again, whenever we should go for design of any waste management system, first thing we should focus on how much waste is produced, quantity, and what is there in the waste, what is the quality of the waste composition. And that's very, very, because that's like your blood report and urine report. Say if you go to a medical doctor and you have some problem, the first thing that, and the problem is not that kind of little bit complicated, the first thing the doctor says that go for certain testing, blood test, urine test, those are very common tests the doctor will ask you to do. Similarly, if you are looking at the waste management problem for a particular city, the first thing you should actually look at is, okay, how much waste is produced, number one. Number two, how much waste is actually what is the type of waste? Is it mostly biodegradable? How much plastic? How much paper? All those different components that you see over here. What is the breakup? Because different component needs different type of treatment, and plastic is one of them. So that is very, very important. So you cannot write, as doctor will not write you a good doctor will not write you a prescription without going through certain tests if it's a complicated scenario. Similarly, a good consultant or a good engineer or a good professional will not just come up with any design or any proposal for waste management of a city without really understanding how much the waste is produced there and what is the type of waste that is produced there. So that's very important, and that's important for plastic waste as well. So when we talk about plastic waste, there are variety of plastic. If you remember from last week that we talked about in those videos, if you don't remember, go back and relook at those videos. Of course, you must have taken the quiz too, which has kind of helps you revise those concepts. So there are a variety of plastic. So when we start getting into plastic waste, not one like there are different categories, and they require different kind of, they can be potentially reused in different application. So we have to now go into whether it's number 1. Remember that number 1 through 7, which is a PET, HDPE, and PP, polypropylene, those different LDPE and different. So we have to start looking at different components, and sometimes they may be mixed together as well. So things starts getting a little bit complicated, but we'll talk about that. We'll go in more detail in the class. So take home message for this particular slide, we'll talk about this graph in a minute. So but typically waste is produced and plastic waste is part of municipal solid waste. Plastic waste is increasing in many cities. We see that component of plastic waste is getting higher and higher as part of municipal solid waste stream. And typically, if you think about the global solid waste composition, which is shown over here, this is based on the World Bank report. This is very recently we have a new report out there as well, which is known as Water Waste 2.0. And I will, as part of the reading material, I will put that it's Water Waste 2.0. It just came out. It just came out in 2018. So I will put this report as well in your as part of the assignment for reading, and I want you to focus on the plastic aspect. I'll tell you which page. In the announcement discussion board will mention that which chapter you need to focus on. So there again they talk about plastic and how the plastic waste is changing globally. So if you look at in general in terms of plastic waste composition, so in terms of global solid waste production, if you look at the global solid waste production, organic is 46%, 46% of the waste is organic in nature. Then we have paper is 17%, plastic is 10%, glass 5%, metal 4%, others 18%. So right now and this 10% was in 2012. So now this number actually is kind of inching towards 20%. Lot of increase, so nearly plastic has doubled in last 10 years. That's what just yesterday I was reading a report from Ireland where they have Ireland EPA has published a report where they documented that actually plastic waste has doubled. Similarly, it's plastic waste, as you can go around and see the waste stream in India, you will see that there is a substantial amount of plastic present now. different types of plastic together, but there is a substantial amount of plastic. But so the number was 10%, but now there is a increase in number. We are seeing a numbers going up. It's around 15-20%, which I'll show you in subsequent weeks when we talk about that as well. So this is a typical waste composition. Out of that, plastic is a significant portion, and we are in this particular week, this particular course, we will be focusing on the plastic waste. Now, we talked about solid waste. Plastic waste is subset of solid waste. Now let's talk about what is plastic waste. Now plastic waste is essentially is an accumulation of plastic objects in the Earth's environment, which is adversely affecting wildlife, habitats, environmental issues, groundwater pollution, surface water pollution, groundwater not that much, surface water, marine environment, human health. You have these days we have a separate week just focusing on human and environmental health, but just so we are seeing lots of plastic in ocean, which is getting into the fish, plastic from surface water getting into the fish body, and we are, those of us who consume fish can get exposed. Recent studies have also shown that plastics are showing up in salt. Like we cannot have any food, isn't it? We need salt pretty much in most of the food that we eat, other than sweet stuff. So salt is getting microplastic because the source of salt many times is our sea, and there microplastics are showing up, like very tiny plastic, which is really nasty stuff, not good for our body, but it is showing up in the salt as well. So we will talk about those reports in coming weeks. So plastic waste, what is if you have to define plastic waste, it's the accumulation of plastic objects in the Earth's environment that adversely affects the wildlife, habitats, and humans. And then we can add there are a lot of other stuff in there as well, like not only wildlife, habitats, and humans, also the environment and other species out there. So there are different types. So when we talk about plastic, there are some microplastic, which is actually small based on the particle size. We have mesoplastic or macro debris, based on size. So micro is considered more dangerous. That's why you hear many times that ban on plastic is actually on thinner plastic, single use plastic, thin film plastic. That's what being banned, because when it kind of disintegrates, gets into a smaller particle size, it becomes bad for the environment. So right now it's regarded more as an aesthetic nuisance than a hazard, since the material is biologically quite inert. It is biologically inert. It doesn't probably, plastic was designed to be biologically inert, so it is biologically inert. But at the same time, plastic we don't want plastic in food, we don't want plastic in our water, we don't want plastic in our salt. So plastic has certain toxicity associated with that as well. So we'll be looking at those aspects. So the main disadvantage is the sheer amount. It does not decompose. It takes average plastic takes more than 500 years to decompose. So plastic is a problem that way. It does not decompose very easily. It takes very long time to decompose, and that becomes an issue. So in terms of plastic, where from the plastic waste is coming, in the previous slide I showed you as part of the municipal solid waste what are the different components. Now in this the plastic waste, what are the sources of plastic waste, where the sources are coming from? Packaging. That's a big problem today, and that problem is not going to go away, unfortunately, because we may replace the material, other than we may probably use some other material, but the packaging, the way our lifestyle has become, where we are everybody is so busy, we are ordering a lot of stuff online, and even if you go to mall and other places, lots of packaging. So packaging is, as you can see, 63% of plastic waste is actually coming from packaging. So that's a lot of plastic in packaging industry. Building and construction industry around 6%, automotive 5%, electronics, WEEE is the electronic waste, electronics and electrical products, housewares, leisures and the sports products 3%, agriculture another 5%, furnitures furnitures and some other items is on 13%. So, if you look at packaging compared to the others, is the difference is more than like around 50%. So, it is the packaging industry that is producing most and most of plastic, as we saw in the previous week, and that is these are producing more and more plastic waste as well. So, a lot of plastic is coming from the packaging of the material, of the packaging waste that is generated, and packaging waste is generated very fast. Say you ordered something on Amazon or Flipkart, the amount that product comes to you, you just take you ordered a nice cell phone, and then you took the cell phone, and rest of all the material that it came with it, with lots of plastics in there, cardboards and other stuff, it just gets dumped. So, the packaging material it becomes waste in a much, there is shelf life of packaging material is very, very low. So, that is what I am trying to say, and that is it creates lots of volume. Of course, we can recycle them, and it should be recycled, so that things does not comes in the waste stream. The problem, especially in the Western world or even in the Indian context now, is that there is a lot of legal issues out there. So, packaging material once used, if it's used again, if something happens to the product, because many of the products, when it's packaged like that, the packaging is needed that way to keep the product safe during the transportation before it reaches your hand or before it gets delivered to a factory. So, if they start using this recycled stuff, and somehow if that packaging product quality was compromised, people are afraid to take the legal blame for that, because that may lead to a lot of like a financial loss. So, what to be on the safer side, every time they will go for the newer material which is clean, which is not contaminated. So, that is why you start seeing many waste coming from this packaging stuff. So, sources where it is coming from, you probably got some idea already in the last 2 slides. So, in terms of the sources, so basically where the waste is coming from, municipal, you saw as part of the municipal waste, plastic was around 10% 7 years ago, and as I told you, the number is increasing, number actually is going a little bit higher now. So, but the municipal sources, which includes residential, markets, commercial establishment, hotels, hospitals, then hospitals, biomedical waste has a lot of plastic there as well. Now, then distribution and industrial sources, all the packaging material, which includes food and chemical industries, packaging films, those are your distribution and industrial sources. And there are other sources like automotive, agricultural waste, fishing, shipping, construction, debris, and some more. You will see you can come up with other categories out there as well. So, there where most of the plastic waste is generated. So, where these are the stuff where we get most of the plastic waste coming into our environment. So, again and then where they are typically end up. So, if you look at plastic waste coming into the environment, and if we think about how they are happening. So, here is a small kind of a flow chart trying to explain that. So, what we have tried to see is distinguish here is in terms of plastic sources, a primary source and a secondary source. Now, from the primary source, we already talked about municipal source, distribution and industrial source, and other sources just now in the previous slide. Now, from the municipal source, it leads to land litter. It can also lead to you will have some micro beads. You can have some inland water litters. You can have some marine litter. So, all these things are possible from your municipal sources. Distribution and industrial source, again you can have some inland litter and industrial leakages. Other sources, basically pretty much everything is possible from other sources as well. Now, once these plastic stuff gets into the environment, and it starts degrading. Degrading, when you are talking about, we are not talking about the biodegradation, we are talking about just breaking it down. It gets broken down into smaller pieces. It leads to what is known as microplastics. So, microplastics are formed during the degradation and fragmentation of these different types of plastic. So, microplastics are very, very tiny particles which can move very easily, which is what shows up in like a salt and other stuff, which gets into the water. And even there are studies now which has said that microplastics are even there in the air. So, even in the air the microplastics are available. So, it is not so what plastics are showing up in water, plastics are showing up in land, plastics are showing up in the air. So, that is the reason why government around the world is really looking at plastic waste in a very, very critical way as of today. And that was kind of the motivation for doing this course, because as I told you earlier, there is no textbook for this course. So, hopefully by the end of this course we will try, I will probably try to, if we can have one, but it's a challenging, because there are a lot of information out there, but there is no as those of you who are taking this course, I strongly encourages you, look for newer information, share it on discussion board. This will really be, this will be a unique course that you have ever taken in your life, where you are teaching the instructor and we all are learning together. It will really be fun, where I want the discussion board to be really lively, where please post stuff, whatever new stuff that you find, Google, go on different stuff, and then see if we miss something in this particular course, we are missing in certain topics, please compliment. We are trying our best not to miss anything significant, but just in case if there is something, please do that. So, in this particular video, what we tried to do, we were looking at sources of plastic waste. So, we started first with defining what is waste, and from the waste, what are the different categories of waste, different components of waste. Then we talked a little bit about the municipal solid waste and what is the typical generation rate and how much of that is plastic. Then we started looking at, okay, plastic is around 10% was there around 7-8 years ago. Now, as I said, told you that it is kind of going towards 20%. Now, this 20% plastic is coming from where? So, 20% plastic out of the total municipal waste stream. So, this 20% plastic is, what is the source of this 20% plastic, and what we found, it was major chunk is coming from packaging industry. So, we had the packaging industry, which was the major chunk, and there were others like construction, agricultural, and there were other sources out there, but in the electrical, biomedical applications, so plastics is used in different applications, but the packaging industry was close to 65%, I think 63% to be precise. And then if in terms of the sources, there are, we have municipal source, we have distribution and electrical source, we have some other sources, and they are leading to land litter, inland water litter, industrial leakage, marine litter, which we talk about in detail as well. And when the things starts breaking down, they make microplastics, and these microplastics are something which we really need to be worried about in terms of managing that in the environment, because it gets into the water stream, it gets into air stream, and it gets into land like soil as well. So, it can have different spheres, it can have an impact. And since plastic is totally man-made material, it is not a natural material. So, Mother Earth does not really know how to deal with it, although our biota is kind of trying to get adjusted. There are some bacteria out there which even started degrading plastic, because they have to kind of survive. It is always you adapt to the condition. So, but at the same time, since they do not degrade, they just gets broken down, gets dig into tiny pieces, it kind of gets into the food chain, it also gets through either water, air, and maybe through soil as well, and it contains several chemicals which which has certain like a harmful effect. So that's kind of the different aspect of source and distribution. We'll continue this discussion in our next video as well, where we'll look at further in terms of the source distribution as well as the global and Indian context. So again, thank you for taking this course. I hope you are enjoying it. Let us know if you are not, and we'll try to fix if there is anything we can do. But at the same time, please put your questions on the discussion board. We will be very happy to answer. Actually, we want the discussion board to be very active, where we can have a back and forth discussion. And of course, we'll have some of the live session as well as part of this course. So thank you, and again, I'll see you in the next video.